Hi everyone, I'm Maria McLachlan. A video someone suggested I could respond to is one Rebecca Watson made about a month ago, entitled Richard Dawkins Doesn't Know What a Woman Is. The title is interesting because Richard Dawkins has written many books on evolutionary biology. He's been married 3 times, he's fathered a child, and he was Professor for the Public Understanding of Science at Oxford University. So chances are he probably does know what a woman is. He must have said something completely daft for someone to bother doing a video hit piece on him and calling it that. So what's he been up to now? If you don't know who Rebecca Watson is, there is plenty of information about her in the public domain, and also about Elevator Gate, which is the name of the debacle that happened, what must be 10 years ago now, during which she was treated abominably by Dawkins and others. And it was the start of how I personally started to dislike Dawkins as a public persona, in spite of his excellent science books, which I would definitely recommend. But let's not go there. Let's see what Rebecca is saying about Richard Dawkins now.
Well, friends, I regret to inform you that Richard Dawkins is very much alive and is doing what UK skeptics have quickly become famous for, which is being wrong about trans people.
Oh my God, don't tell me Richard Dawkins has gone and joined the gender pseudo-cult, as so many erstwhile skeptics in the UK have done, along with Americans like Rebecca Watson and her mate, real biologist P.Z. Myers.
First, I learned that he was approvingly retweeting a Times article by Trevor Phillips, something I was quite excited about because I was really wondering what that guy's been up to since GTA 5.
With the help of an internet search engine, I established that GTA 5 is some kind of video game which happens to feature a character called Trevor Phillips, who is a criminal. So Rebecca is just being a little tease, pretending to have confused a man who's had a distinguished career as a broadcaster and writer, who'd actually been awarded an OBE for that's an Order of the British Empire for his services to television, without even having a degree in communications, as Rebecca Watson has. Phillips has only got a degree in chemistry from Imperial College London. Oh, and he was head of the Commission for Racial Equality too, so quite an accomplished man. And to pretend to mistake him for some fictional criminal in a video game, yeah, it's worth a half smile. Nice one, Rebecca.
Turns out it's someone else, someone much dumber.
Dumber than a fictional petty criminal is maybe taking the joke a bit far, but then she doesn't really look or sound as if she's joking. So maybe the real life Trevor Phillips has indeed said or done something uncharacteristically dumb. I mean, which of us hasn't? I'm intrigued.
This Trevor Phillips is very upset because putting a period after the word great in a text message is seen by some young people as sarcastic, and he does not understand that, and it scares him.
Huh? There is nothing in the paragraph she shows us to suggest that he's very upset or scared or doesn't understand. The article is behind a paywall, but I've helpfully made the text available on my site, and I'll provide a link below in case anyone wants to see for themselves that it is actually quite good. And Rebecca's representation of it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Crap. That'll do. Absolute crap.
This is somehow related to a Guardian columnist who resigned after stating that trans women aren't women, which is both rude.
Rude? You wouldn't think rudeness would be that much of a concern for a woman who calls someone even dumber than a fictional criminal character in a video game, would you? But talking of dumb, look at what she says next.
And obviously wrong because, hello, the word women is right there in trans women.
She actually said that. She has got to be joking, hasn't she?
It's like saying that airplane mechanics aren't mechanics, only mechanics are mechanics. Like, no, the word is right there. Trans women are women.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't realise she's joking, I mean, she has to be, and thinks that's a serious argument, here's one I made earlier. And the silliest argument that is made by trans activists goes like this. Trans women are women. The clue is in the name. Well, change the bloody name, it's misleading. Who do you think coined the term trans women in the first place? Wasn't a biologist. By the way, eaten any hot dogs lately? The clue is in the name. Poor doggies. So, no, it's not like saying aeroplane mechanics aren't mechanics. It's like saying pantomime horses aren't horses. They're just a couple of performers performing being a horse, just as trans-identifying men perform womanhood. If you're going to insist that these men are actually women, you're going to have to do a lot better than, hello, the word is right there. Really? On we go.
Also, according to Phillips, it's very upsetting that Cambridge University has been manipulated into overturning centuries of dedication to freedom of thought and tolerance. What did Cambridge University do to destroy free speech? Well, they are proposing a change in statutes that would require staff to display respect for the views of all colleagues. Hold on. So by asking their staff to respect all views, that's less free speech? Wouldn't respecting all views lead to more free speech because people who hold controversial views would feel more free to express those views, since the staff would be discouraged from disrespecting those views?
Hold on, why did you miss out the bit that provides the clue to what Trevor Phillips was concerned about? That would require staff to display respect for the views of all colleagues, inter alia misogynists, fascists, Islamists, homophobes, flat earthers, climate change deniers, racists, and anti-Semites. I would expect that most people would have a problem if they were required on a university campus to display respect for views with which they profoundly disagree, which they may even be horrified and deeply offended by. I find it hard to believe that Rebecca herself would go along with it. She seems to be missing something important here, and I'm wondering if it has to do with her understanding of the word respect. It is a word that is somewhat vague and subjective, and that was considered to be one of the problems with the new proposed wording. That she doesn't quite get it, or doesn't get it at all, would seem to be confirmed by her next comment.
I'm honestly so confused about this. I'd like to say something as someone who is often extremely disrespectful to people who have different opinions from mine when I feel that those opinions do real harm to the rest of the world. In a university setting, it's okay to have some standards of professionalism. I'm not going to walk into some Christian theology professor's classroom at Cambridge and shout, "Your magical sky daddy likes watching you jerk off."
At least she admits she's confused, though unlike PZ Myers, who I'll get onto in a moment, she did manage to grasp that the topic under discussion at Cambridge was just about views, opinions, beliefs, not the individuals expressing them. It's interesting that her example of showing respect for someone's beliefs is not shouting at a theologian, what was it, your magical sky daddy likes watching you jerk off. In Rebecca's world, apparently, respect means not behaving like a drunken adolescent deviant carrying out some juvenile dare. And much as I personally feel that the current generation of university students has much to be ashamed of, I don't think the kind of behaviour hypothesised by Rebecca is particularly a problem at Cambridge or anywhere else. Now, it's a shame that by her own admission, she didn't actually listen to the radio broadcast that inspired the title of her video, but as she put it,
Over on Ferangula, PZ Myers notes that Dawkins was recently featured on a radio program discussing this very upsetting Cambridge University respect rule. And PZ transcribed a bit of it so that we don't have to subject ourselves.
saying we don't have to subject ourselves to listening to Dawkins isn't rude at all, of course, but this is the reason I decided to include PZ Myers in this video. His blog post is the source of Rebecca's video, not the original broadcast. So I looked at PZ's post. It's entitled Richard Dawkins Loses the Plot, which from PZ is more than a little ironic. I'm confident that far more people see PZ Myers rather than Richard Dawkins as someone who has lost the plot in recent years anyway. Relatively speaking, of course, because Dawkins is very famous and P.Z. Myers isn't, although he is quite a high-profile member of the skeptic movement in the US. I've been to, I think, just one conference he's spoken at, but that was years ago when he still seemed quite reasonable, before he lost the plot. As an example of how unreasonable he comes across now, we can see how fond he is of using the derogatory term TERF. TERFs, TERFs, TERFs. On and on it goes. TERFs don't understand biology. Let's smoke some more TERFs out. Not dehumanizing us at all, is he? TERFs are the worst. Got that? It's not murderers, rapists, paedophiles, torturers, or genocidal maniacs. It's TERFs. He really does sound quite disturbed, actually. Turning to his blog, I checked out a fairly recent post entitled The Arrogance of TERFs. It begins, the Royal Society of Biology is celebrating Biology Week 2020 and some random turfy twit saw it as an opportunity to declare that sex is determined at conception, observed at or before birth, and is immutable, none of which is universally true. And he goes on to say how real biologists like him know better. So who is this random turfy twit who could say something so preposterous and arrogant? Oh, it's Tricia Frasman, who happens to be a social media friend of mine, who happens to have a PhD in biochemistry and to have spent years teaching undergraduates biology, including physiology, biochemistry, genetics, health studies, diseases and infections, and microbiology. I'm reading this on her LinkedIn page. Oh, and before that, she was a postdoctoral research assistant, research into something to do with embryogenesis. I'm fairly sure, in fact, I'm convinced that Tricia knows exactly when and how sex is determined. She also knows that sex in humans is observed at or before birth and is indeed immutable. I wonder why PZ is so invested in trying to obfuscate these facts. I also know for a fact that Tricia Frasman, when she sees something she disagrees with, she doesn't throw her toys out of the pram. She doesn't run off and write a little crybaby blog post mocking and attacking anyone, whereas PZ seems to think that's a perfectly laudable and grown-up thing to do. Takes all sorts. Back to his recent one attacking Richard Dawkins. Apparently, there's a bit of a row going on over in the UK because Cambridge University is planning to impose a policy that would require Cambridge's academics, students and visiting speakers to treat others and their opinions with respect. This is bugging a few people who don't want to respect others. Looking at you, PZ. I'm not sure whether he is deliberately conflating two separate things because he thinks his readers are stupid, or whether he really can't discern a difference between respect for people and respect for views, which is what the proposal was actually about. Why would anyone show respect for the views, for example, of religious fundamentalists? The person expressing those views, yes, if they've been invited to speak on a university campus, you treat them with the same courtesy you treat anyone else. But when they say homosexuality is an abomination and you're going to burn in hell for all eternity, are you just going to smile politely and applaud? That's what showing respect means. As Richard Dawkins explained in the radio interview that PZ and Rebecca got all worked up about, respect is to do with feelings. It's like love, not something you can command and turn on like a tap. And that was why he hoped the proposed amendments to the Cambridge Statute, replacing the word respect with tolerate and tolerance or toleration, would win the day. Tolerance means you are expected to allow someone to have their say, to express their views uninterrupted, however repellent you find them, but that you are free to express disagreement, offence or anger, and to challenge them robustly if you have a mind to. Thankfully, the amendments proposing the revised wording were passed by a landslide, 87% of Cambridge University's academics disagreed with Peasy and Rebecca and voted in favour of free speech. Now, I haven't quite finished with Peasy, but before I show the next bit, I'll issue one of these. He continues, I mean, really, asking people to treat others with respect is not an onerous demand. Oh, PC. Sorry. I've listened to creationists and Republicans speaking on campus and managed to treat them with respect, even while regarding their ideas as horseshit and being able to tear into them with questions. It's not hard. So he manages to listen patiently and then ask incisive questions of creationists and Republicans. I mean, who can't do that? Of course, it's not hard. But what is too hard for Peasy is to treat with respect any woman or man who challenges transgender ideology. Anyone who says woman means adult human female and women don't have penises will not be treated with respect by Peasy. What he will do is have a mighty foot stamping dummy spitting, nappy wetting tantrum. He will point and laugh. He will try to humiliate. He will insult and abuse. And he will get a lot of kudos from appreciative members of the gender cult. Now, on to the second part of Rebecca's video in which she rails against Dawkins' response to a transsexual listener who said this.
The radio host brings up a message from a listener, Zoe. Zoe says, as a post-op transsexual woman married to a man and being a respectful member of society, I would hope to be respected as a person rather than being merely tolerated. Otherwise, incorrect assumptions and bigotry will thrive. And she asks what Dawkins would say to Zoe.
I think it's a shame that neither the show's host, Emma Barnett of the BBC, nor Richard Dawkins pointed out that Zoe's comment, the way it was worded, was a red herring. The topic was specific to a university campus, not wider society. Showing respect for people generally means behaving personably towards them, being polite, considerate, helpful wherever they are, on campus or off it, while merely tolerating them means not being any of those things necessarily, but not doing anything to bother or harm them either. If Zoe's comment had been put to me, I would say that respect for all people is my default position, regardless of who or what they are. It doesn't mean that I respect their views. I'm quite capable of showing respect to people who I disagree with profoundly, including over their gender identity. That's part of being grown up. They only lose my respect if they behave badly towards me or anyone else. And I must say, some people do lose my respect very quickly, especially online. Let me give you a quick example of the kind of behavior that causes me to lose respect for someone in an instant.
J.K. Rowling has finally officially come out as a TERF, aka a trans exclusionary radical feminist, which is literally just an accurate description of what a TERF believes, but apparently they think TERF is a slur. So for this video, I'm going to use a less loaded term. Let's go with bigoted fuckface. This all started because of a woman named Maya Forstater. Forstater is a TERF. A bigoted fuckface. You know what? I'm just going to go with TERF. It's easier to say. Really rolls off the tongue.
That was from another video by Rebecca called J.K. Rowling is a TERF, but you can still enjoy Harry Potter. I know, it's pathetic, isn't it? Two feminists managing to calmly, coherently, and without abusing or dismissing anyone, express concern over the impact that gender ideology is having on women and girls, and they are called bigoted fuckfaces and TERFs by a woman who claims to be a feminist and a skeptic. Again, Rebecca is clearly oblivious to the irony. I was tempted to do a video response to that video, but Andy Lewis already did a really good blog post on it. Actually, a Twitter thread turned into a blog post on his Quackometer website. And I didn't just want to make a video borrowing heavily on somebody else's blog post like Rebecca did with PZ Myers. In that blog post of Andy's, which I will link to below, he also links to a post by PZ explaining why he banned Andy and my husband, Alan Hennis, and yours truly from commenting on his blog. Okay. Sorry for the digression now. How did Dawkins reply to the transsexual Zoe? So we don't have to subject ourselves to any more of Rebecca than necessary, I've managed to get the original audio. You're welcome.
I would say that if she wants to be called she, I'm very happy to call her she. That's a matter of courtesy. But if she wants me to say that she is a woman when she has an XY karyotype, then as a biologist, I would say that I would define a woman as a biologist, as a member of the species Homo sapiens with XX karyotype. That's a matter of definition. People can say what they want to be called, and I'm happy as a matter of courtesy. I do this myself. A person who was a man who becomes a woman, I'm happy to use the pronouns like she, but I'm not happy to be dictated to and told you must use this pronoun as a matter of law or coercion.
So Dawkins responded as if Zoe had made a different comment, really, like, do you respect my identity as a woman? I have several criticisms of Dawkins' response. Not least that he says Zoe has gone from being a man into a woman, which is cobblers, of course, because nobody can do that. But my main criticism is that by saying we categorize sex by karyotype rather than reproductive role, he walks right into what could possibly be called a version of the intersex gambit. The intersex gambit occurs usually when you point out that there are only two sexes, that sex is binary, and they say, no, intersex people exist, so sex is a spectrum or a bimodal distribution, which is nonsense. The fact that some people have differences of sexual development does not mean they are different sexes or that there is a range of sexes. There are two, but there are anatomical variations within each of the two. And yes, some people have a non-standard karyotype. And of course, Richard Dawkins knows this. Now, Rebecca does not, in fairness, say that sex is a spectrum in this video. I don't know if she does anywhere else. But what she says is that not all women have an XX karyotype. She specifies women with Turner syndrome, which is fair enough. But look at how she frames it.
But also, I want to point out that this bit was seriously embarrassing when Dawkins says, I would say that I would define a woman as a biologist as a member of the species Homo sapiens with XX karyotype. Yikes. 1 in 2,500 girls is born with only one X chromosome, a condition known as Turner syndrome.
What is seriously embarrassing here is Rebecca's attempt to mock Richard Dawkins talking about anything to do with biology.
It is helpful to teach little children the simplest version of our genetic story because it's easier for them to grasp. Girls have XX chromosomes and boys have XY chromosomes. We do this for pretty much every area of science.
Exactly. Yet Rebecca seems to have the same problem as Peasy in understanding that although Dawkins is a biologist, as is Tricia Frasman, making a point on Twitter or on a popular daytime radio show does not require them to give a detailed lecture. They need to keep it simple for the average listener or Twitter user to follow easily.
But once you're an adult, if you have had any schooling at all, you should know better. And if you're a biologist, even one who hasn't actually worked in the sciences in several decades, you should know a lot better.
No, you should know better, Rebecca, because you just sound silly. You've never been a scientist, let alone a professor at Oxford or anywhere else. I'm not even going to show the last bit of her video where she says Dawkins has a pseudo-scientific understanding of genetics, because I'm just embarrassed for her. Same goes for PZ Myers. Listen to this. Woman is a complex multifactorial entity and it is not identical with reproductive female as he is using it. As a biologist, I would not analogize womanhood with the function of one half of a breeding pair of fruit flies or spiders or zebrafish or mice. What is he babbling on about? What does he imagine is so complex and multifactorial about woman? It just means adult human female, and Dawkins isn't analogizing womanhood with fruit flies and mice and whatever else, for crying out loud. You keep saying you're a biologist, Peasy. Good for you. Stick to biology and leave the ideological claptrap to the sociologist or whoever does it. For those who want to follow real biologists on Twitter, ones who, unlike Peasy Myers, know that adult human males can't be women, I recommend, in addition to the lovely Tricia Frasman, and always civil Tricia Frasman, let's not forget, developmental biologist Emma Hilton, whose account is called Fond of Beetles, and Colin Wright, who was an evolutionary biologist. He's now left academia and is editor of Quillette. Just out of curiosity, I checked to see if either of these two had ever engaged with or mentioned PC Myers on Twitter, and I found this from Emma. He was basically a hero for me until I got to the point where my 8 index is higher than his, and he turned out to be disappointing. She's just being kind. She's about half his age too. And this from Colin. I was a huge PZ fan back in the day, read his blog like a morning newspaper, then he went bonkers. Exactly. Enough already, PZ, and you, Rebecca. Lay off the gender Kool-Aid because it's making you stupid. You evidently have no rational arguments, just snark, nastiness and silly insults for people who behave a lot better than you do. Time you learnt some respect. Thanks for watching. Bye.